Hey y'all, this is Megan from Made for Mermaids, and today I'm sewing a Youth Florence dress. I'm not using any straps for mine, and if you're looking for one with a strap, I'll link down below. First, you'll need to cut two bodices in your main fabric, mirror images, and then you'll also need to cut two bodices in your lining fabric that are mirror images. For the skirt, you can cut two on the fold like I have here, or you can cut one on the double fold. The first step is going to be to sew the shoulder seams of your bodice. So you're going to put them right sides together, aligning those raw edges, and stitch that shoulder seam together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then you're going to do the same thing with your lining pieces. Now you're going to lay your main piece out flat with the right side up, and you're going to take your lining piece with the right side down so the right sides are together, and align your pieces so all the raw edges and shoulder seams match. Now we're going to stitch them together at the arm side and along the neckline using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. When you're sewing this seam, you're going to add elastic to it. There are directions in the tutorial with pictures and how to do it. I prefer to sew my elastic and all of these seams with my sewing machine because you get a little bit of a cleaner finish. If you use your serger, then your clear elastic is going to push the lining or the main to one side, and you can't really do anything about it. Even if you top stitch, it's going to flip a little bit because the elastic will be pushing towards one side. So what I like to do is sew the seam first with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then go back and add my elastic inside of the seam allowance so it's sandwiched between and it doesn't push the lining or the main to one side. When you're adding your clear elastic, make sure that you exercise it, which is just pulling it like this a little bit before you add it so it's not too tight. When I'm adding my elastic, I don't like to add it to the seam allowance, so I start about 1/2 inch away from the raw edge, as you see here, and then I'll just start stitching the elastic on. This is sewn on with about a 1-to-1 ratio. You don't want to pull your elastic too tight because it will gather your fabric, and you also don't want it too loose. So just put a little bit of tension on it as you're sewing, and we'll be sewing it both along the arm side and on the neckline in the same way. Then you're going to flip your bodice right side out by just pulling it through the shoulder seam, and then you're going to sew the side seam. So you're going to open up the main and lining layers on both the front and back, and then you will match the right sides of the front and back, main and lining both together, and those seams that we have sewn, and then you'll stitch the side seams with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then you're going to press that lining towards the wrong side and the right side out, and if you want to, you can go ahead and top stitch the arm side and neckline now. I went ahead and quartered my bodice, and now we'll just set it aside while we work on the skirt. You're going to lay your skirt piece out flat, and then put your second skirt piece on top, aligning all the raw edges, and we're going to sew the two pieces together, creating the side seams with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then you're going to want to quarter the waistline of your circle skirt, so you just put the side seams together to find the center, front, and back pieces. Then you're going to turn your bodice inside out, and we're going to place the skirt inside of the bodice, matching the raw edges and the quarter points, and you're going to stitch this waist together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. After you stitch the waist seam, you can press it towards the bodice and top stitch if you like. And the final step is going to be to hem the bottom of your skirt. So you press a 1/2 inch to the wrong side and then just edge stitch the hem in place. You could also do a lettuce hem on the edge, and if you need a video on that, then I will link it down below. Once you hem your skirt, then your Youth Florence is complete. These are so quick and simple to make. They are really twirly. My niece absolutely loves them. She's already asking my sister to make her more, which I love. If you make one, we would love to see in our Facebook group or tag us on Instagram at Made for Mermaids. If you have any questions, please leave them down below and I'll try to answer.